Hey everybody, it's Kyle. I'm a minute or two late. Got busy doing something, but I wanted to share with you something exciting that happened this past week. Actually, it was yesterday. For some of you that may or may not know, I run a small little coaching program for parents who are raising kids on the autism spectrum, and our goal ultimately is to lower stress in the family. So it's kind of exciting to be able to do that. And I have people that come into our program all the time. Recently, I had a new family come into the program, and just only about 2 weeks after they had started, I started getting these. It almost appeared to be frantic emails from this guy, and he sent me one day and said, "Could we talk?" And I said, "Sure," but we couldn't organize it. The next morning, I had another one. The afternoon, I had another one. So I figured something was going wrong. I was getting a little nervous. Either he was going to be high maintenance, really high maintenance, or or something was horribly wrong in his family. So I ended up connecting with him, and when I got on the phone with him, he was so excited. I could hear the excitement in his voice. And so I started asking him, "What's going on? Is everything okay?" And he said, "Yeah, it's okay." He said, "I wanted to tell you, Kyle, when we first started your program, I thought my wife was the problem." He said, "But only two lessons in, I started to realize that changing me is changing everything, right?" And he started seeing ways that he was sabotaging his family's happiness, and he's been starting to fix it and having great results. And he said he's really seen dramatic change, and it's been really exciting, and he wanted to just share that with me. He was so excited he couldn't just email me. He had to talk to me. But it kind of led us down this path of just having this conversation about some of his circumstances and mine. And he was really curious about how we found this methodology and how we kind of created it. And so it led me to tell him a story about a real good friend of mine named Dee. When I first got married, I had a buddy whose name was Dee. He's still my buddy, and it's been a long time ago. But we were both newly married and had a couple of kids each. We were pretty young. And I remember him having a conversation with him one day where he said, "You know what, Kyle, I got a question for you." I said, "What's that?" He said, "How do you stop your wife from passing down her family's bad habits to your kids?" And this was an interesting question, right? Because I think in my family probably had the worst habits than my wife's. My wife grew up in a pretty functional family that seemed to be okay, and she actually was training me on how to do it. But it was interesting because his wife had grown up in circumstances where she was doing some wacky and crazy and zany things. And he wanted to come up with a way to tell her that's not normal. If you continue to do that, we're going to pass that down to our kids, and they're going to continue to perpetuate those bad habits. And so in having these conversations with him, I said, "Well, what bad habits do you have that you don't want to pass down?" And he was kind of stumped for a moment. And he said, "Well, I don't really know. I mean, I can't really think of any." And I said, "Well, did you come from a perfect family?" And he said, "No, there was all kinds of." And so we started talking about some of the things that had happened to him that he had started doing with his kids. And he really didn't even know he was doing it with his kids. It was kind of this, it was happening in the background. He wasn't even aware of it. And so, we kind of developed together through conversations how to identify what those things are and really become conscious of them, and then how to kind of change the way you view things so that you don't pass those things down. It was really fascinating to watch, and it was really a great experience for me. And I really learned to apply it real heavily with my kids once I started having kids on the spectrum. I mean, there's a lot of bad habits I brought into our relationship and into it as a father. I think I've got the greatest father ever, but there were things that were done and said and how I viewed them that were holding me back. And really, I could see myself passing those things down to my kids. So after we had this conversation, he was so excited. He said, "You know what, Kyle? We can actually stop these generational patterns and give our kids a better world because they won't be stuck with all this baggage that we have." And as we got to talking about that, it became apparent to him in his life that his dad had passed things down to him, and his dad's dad, and his dad's dad's dad, and all these families had been affected by some decisions or the way we viewed things. And so it was really exciting for him to tell me how now he had been able to see those things in his life. And really it started by, ultimately, he thought his wife was the problem. And he was really looking, when they started our program, he was really looking to solve it, her problems, when in reality, he was a big part of the problem until he understood those facts. So anyway, if you're interested in seeing kind of how we do that, join us. There's a great way to join us. You can become a part of our Insiders group. In the first 2 weeks, I've heard over and over and over from people how positive and incredibly effective it was, just learning the 2 strategies we share in the first 2 weeks and implementing into those into their families. So I don't do a lot of live videos. I thought I'd do one today. Have a great day. If you have any questions or there's anything I can do for you, let me know. If you want certain videos about certain things, I'm always looking for content. We want you to be happy. Anything we can do to help with that, let us know. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.